You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Digital Deep Dive Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conant, and today have a longtime friend, David Sanborn, way back from the Basic Brands days, a brand that he gotten up and off the ground. Like really neat story as a whole. Now at GIZMO Global, doing some cool stuff, but also has another brand he's working on to get up and going. And so we've just been longtime friends, met, I don't know, multiple times just over the phone, and then reconnected again at Shop Talk, which seems to be the place we usually connect every year. And I thought, hey, let's just have a great conversation. I think a lot of people would like to hear your story as a whole on the podcast. But David, I'll kick it over to you if you want to jump in, like some background, like way back to like when we first started talking and building a brand and selling it, then making a decision of what you're going to do next, and then the pivot into, I didn't say even pivot, this like, hey, I also want to do that again. Would love to hear a bunch of that stuff.
Yeah, Aaron, as always, great conversations. And yeah, we go a long way back. And honestly, I had a big kudos, I owe you a big one, which I don't even know if you remember this, but I'll hit on it again. So yeah, going back, from an Amazon and brand point of view, I actually launched the brand in 2012. I grew it, and then it flatlined. It wasn't the greatest product idea, but pivoted into pet in 2015, which was the Basics Brands concept, but truly a simple product, food topper, and some supplementation that we were doing back then for dogs, which was really early in the space, and just that space has just exploded, particularly from an Amazon point of view. But the opportunity to grow that, and Aaron, I think we met probably like 2018, maybe early 2019. But we formally met in person, I think it was the end of 2019. And at that point, I had kind of outsourced all of the brand, so I was the only employee of the brand, and I had everything else outsourced. So of course, like the whole idea of, a lot of partners, right? And getting into a global ecosystem of partners really to run an e-commerce brand. Before that, I had a warehouse, I had employees, I had all that fun stuff that really wasn't that much fun. But yeah, so we met, and I was thinking about the idea of selling the brand. And funny enough, at a dinner hosted by BWG, I met a guy at a bar who ended up being the person that wanted to acquire the brand. Yeah, so there you go. Met a guy at the bar who was there for the same event in Atlanta, and and the sort of
that is awesome.
History. Yeah, and we became friends, and we still he's kind of my mentor now. Matt Harriet, I'll throw his name out there. He's a really great friend and been a great mentor in sort of taking a brand, and especially the retail aspect, right? So not just in an e-commerce brand, building it into a truly omni-channel business. And that's what we did with the Flavors Food Topper line, which you can find it in Target stores and grocery stores now. So that was really fun to build something.
Just really quick, I do want to jump in there because we do 100 of those dinners a year. We probably do 4 like small format, like full day events, like 100 people, not like thousands of people. But that's where I'm always encouraging people, like follow up with the people at the table. Like we put it on usually with a single, maybe 2 sponsors, but they're vetted out by the community before they get invited to be a sponsor. And so it's almost 95% brands. Like, you never know who that connection is. Just ping them. Have a cocktail, ping them the next day for coffee. Like, just build that own personal network. And that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, of course, networking, so important. And you've done a great job of it. I mean, building your network, building everyone else's network while you're doing it. I
just love people. I just literally love people. I don't know why. It drives my wife bonkers. Even my kids at times. Like, I'll literally talk to everybody when we're out and about. So
yeah.
Anyways.
So great opportunity to go from fully like concept through to product, through to selling a brand, and learning the full scope of it. And then I spent a little bit of time with an aggregator here in the last 2 years after the company that acquired it, I stayed on and ran the business as a GM, and then left and joined an aggregator for a short amount of time, which is very interesting. Nothing we can unpack right on this call, but an interesting opportunity to see, the flip, kind of the reverse side of it. All these little brands that have been bought up on little, right? Some of them are pretty big, but a challenge in the management overall, and obviously from a financial perspective in the market. But yeah, after a while, two things. I mean, one, I see a huge opportunity from overall what you've seen in the Amazon ecosystem, brands, people starting businesses, right, and building multi-million-dollar businesses, typically off of sourcing products, right, from overseas. Some obviously manufacturing in the U.S. and those things, but truly figuring out how to develop, source, and launch products and brands. And I get excited when I look at overall the marketplace. I've been in food and pet space. I was in what's technically consumable, but before that I was a hardware brand, so sourcing products from China. And so now, yeah, I've been working on a company, GIZMO. We develop and manufacture. So I have two partners in China with 3 factories, mostly focused on consumer electronics. And there's obviously a lot of opportunity there because the vast majority of consumer electronics, at least in the US, are still going to all come from Asia, even though there are the challenges with tariffs and things like that. But for me, it's really actually fun to just help develop more products and brands. I would call myself an inventor, and then the business I figure out, and then I really enjoy the end side of it, which is the sort of marketing, sales, understanding the consumer aspect. And that's where also now I'm like jumping back in as a brand, because I just find it so fun to like solve a problem, understand a consumer, and then figure out the product and market, sell it to them. So yeah, I do kind of have those two things right now going on. And it's really just my like passion. I mean, that's where I really enjoy operating. So,
we're like, what's the hardest part? So you've built a brand, sold it. Now there's the design portion, sourcing portion, and through GIZMO, and then there's new brand that you're launching. Like, what is the hardest part that's in there that people, or so number one, what is the hardest part? And then what do you think most people who are kicking off a brand or any of these things view as the hardest part, but really isn't that hard once you've done it and you know it, and then you can just rinse and repeat? Like seems like there's always something that people make, the proverbial mountain out of a molehill. Like, what is actually the mountain? What's just a molehill that you found?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. For everyone, I do believe it's different. I'm a product person. When I was in elementary school, I was building stuff in the shed in our backyard. We had like a workshop, right? So I'm a product person, a physical product person. So for me, the development, the iterative process, right, thinking through sort of like problems and solving problems and challenges there early is relatively easy. But I would also, and I think a lot of people they kind of stumble there because they might dump a lot of money in like, oh, I need to patent something. 10, 20, 30, $50,000 down the drain before you've even got like a proof of concept. And so there's a lot of things that I think once you've done it once, which I have a patent in my name, it's useless, right? Like, it was great. Nice piece of paper, right? Probably
Expensive piece of paper.
$20,000. Exactly. Yeah. But I didn't really prove the concept in the market. So the patent, anyway, I mean, there's a lot of things in there that you can spend a lot of time on. A lot of people I'm a perfectionist. All the time, and like smack my own hand. Stop trying to get something to 100%. 80% is good, right? To test the market, to learn, to understand whether you're doing something anybody even cares about. But yeah, so I would say from a manufacturing and a product development point of view, I do think there's a lot of help now that a lot of people don't realize as a manufacturer representing the manufacturing side of it. Manufacturers will do a lot of work for you. Even my earliest products, you go to them, and I didn't need to hire a CAD designer. They already had one on staff. So I could talk to him and get him to do work for what another person would charge me hundreds of dollars an hour. They did it for free because they wanted the business. So there's a lot of things like that as you're developing a product, same thing with formulation. So now on formulating foods, there's plenty of suppliers that will help you with, they might have labs, they might have what's called like bench samples, like they might create small formulation runs for you. And even if it's not free, it might be very low cost. And that can help you get there as opposed to thinking, I need to do all of this myself. And then I've got this secret, right, that I can't share with anybody until I have it to show the world. And I think that's a big kind of what I'd say, like it's a myth that somebody's just going to steal your idea all the time. I mean, yes, you can do NDAs and everything else, but the truth is, when you have an idea and you want to get it made, there's a lot of help out there. Physical products, electronics, foods, all these things, right? You can get all these things done early, and at least get something in your hands so you can like test the market, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, you don't have to do it all, but I think that inhibits a lot of people from just getting started. Do you know what I mean? Like, you also have to have that piece that, hey, I have to sacrifice something. A lot of it is going to be my time, right? There is the money portion, but a lot of it is like, it's going to be a ton of time because I'm going to have to learn every piece of this along the way. And what I'm hearing from you is like, no, actually, you don't have to learn everything and become an expert along the formulations, the packaging, the, child resistant packaging, if it's, food and bev or whatever it might be, that leverage additional people in your network or the different suppliers you might have along the way to help you get off the ground and start putting things into motion.
Of course, yeah. I mean, if anything, I would say from an entrepreneurial mindset for me is just a person that's not willing to like quit when like something comes up and you think, oh, this is a challenge that I don't really know how to do it. Go ask somebody, go ask a supplier, right? Go, you can reach out, right? And use Google as well, right? To figure out a lot of things. A lot of people ask me, well, how do you find partners for different things? I mean, there are tons of directories now, resources to find co-manufacturers, to find ingredient suppliers. And yeah, it might be challenging. Like you might not find it on the first Google search, right? But you click here and you click here and you click, and then an hour later, you might actually find something that you need. Whether it's a development company, it's a factory in China. Not everything is just right there on page one of Google. But I feel like I kind of expect that. Like, why can't I find in this case, an instant coffee manufacturer? There's a few that pop up, but nothing that would be what we needed for this newest brand. So yeah, I mean, it's always that that resilience, right? To continue asking questions, maybe hit a lot of roadblocks and no's, but you can get there. So,
like, when does marketing come into play? At what point in time, and then how much should you do to grow the first brand that you had out there, Flavors? How did you look at that? Because I know people want to think about that. And then I want to talk about GIZMO just a little bit from that standpoint and what you're learning from there. And then obviously the coffee brand, I want to talk about that too. That would be super fun.
Yeah. Well, that's truly like packaged all together, I would say now, is that when I look at a company, it's my company. When I look at another brand, another company where we potentially will manufacture a product for, I now look at it almost from it as like an investor point of view, in the sense of, does this product have the opportunity to survive the marketing challenges of the world today? And that is a big question that if you develop an amazing, amazing product, right, but no one knows about it, it may as well not exist. And so I do think there are caveats to that, and people could point out to like, oh, well, there's this one thing that really made it, it was a great product because it was just a great product. But the reality is you have to be a good marketer. And so for me, especially talking with newer entrepreneurs and sort of mentoring programs that I do, and even just other ecom groups, I say, go back to square one of like understanding the market. Can you get out there and can you figure out who actually needs this, or what, this product that you're making? Why do they actually want it? How do they talk about it that it actually solves a problem for them, and like in their words, not in your words? And that's a huge challenge. And as you know, in today's world, not 10 years ago in e-com, where you could put anything on the internet, especially Amazon, was a great example of, well, I found a cheese grater. I put it on there and boom, I sold 1,000 of them because people were looking for cheese graters. And in today's world, there's 500 of those, right? So how is yours different than anybody else's? But that also goes for innovative products as well, because the CPCs, right, the CPMs, all these numbers out there are just much higher than they used to be, because the market's more competitive for consumers' eyeballs. So I truly look at it as like every product has to have that thought about at the very beginning. And you, of course, know like how we unpack, how I kind of approach that with my own brands as well now.
Yeah, I mean, it is easier than ever to launch a brand, I believe, and there's more tools out there than ever before, but it's also more expensive, right? Most brands at this point in time are launched in the digital space. I mean, we have like even the in-store buyers, right? They will go and look at ratings and reviews to help them make a
Yep.
better decision on what they're going to put on store shelves. So now, obviously, everything I should say everything, a lot of stuff that's making it on the store shelves has to have a digital presence somewhere. It has to have proved itself out. If you're not an established company, right? I mean, Panasonic comes out with something new. Obviously, they already have a foot in the door. Everybody's going to take a look at it. But if you're trying to grow your own brands individually, yeah, more tools than ever, but also more expensive than ever. And therefore, you can look at it like, yes, I have the tools. Yes, it's a great product, but can I even make money at it? Right? Because there's a lot of brands
Yep.
for the last few years, it didn't matter forever. You could run at a loss and people would still give you money to run it. But now, I mean, that mindset is pretty much gone by the wayside. Everybody's looking for profitable companies now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that kind of leads into the what I would consider innovation in product. So is it a better product? Does it actually like solve a problem that is not really addressed right now, or can we do it better than other things that are out there? But then innovation in marketing as well is, why does it stand out? I mean, I can, everybody would say, oh, look at Liquid Death, right? They sell a can of water and they've become almost $1 billion company doing that. And the one thing you can point out is, yeah, I guess they might have been the first person to put water in a can, or the first brand, even though there might have been somebody in Europe or somewhere else that did it. But the branding, right? I mean, that their marketing angles is so different, and it stands out with an audience that has an unmet need, which is interesting to me. Of I think concert goers, right, having a can of water instead of a bottle of water is enough of a compelling need that, what is it? The concert company, they brought it into every venue pretty quickly after they launched the brand. I think they invested as well. So instead of having Dasani at a concert, right, you have Liquid Death because it's much cooler. But there's tons of big brands like that, right, that are not doing necessarily crazy innovation, but the marketing innovation is next level, right? And that's obviously shown to be successful,
Yeah.
outside of having like a straight up influencer. Mr. Beast launched his own brand. So
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. If you're older and you haven't checked out Mr. Beast, you should totally look at it. I don't know if you saw this thing where they offered him like 2 to 3 quick, like, I think they offered him like somebody offered him 2 to 3 billion for it. And he was like, it's got to be 20 to 30 billion. And people were like, no way. And then everybody did the math. And it's like, yeah, his network of YouTube channels and what he does and the views they generate is somewhere between 20 and 30 billion dollars.
Yeah. Yeah, he owns eyeballs, right? I mean, what every TV station, what every streaming app hopes to do with creating movies, all day long for $1 billion budgets, right? He's making videos that are, I mean, they're still expensive videos now, right? But he owns eyeballs. And what, I mean, 1 billion of them, is that what it's his subscriber? So yeah, I mean, there you go. He can monetize those 1 billion eyeballs like that. So yeah.
Did you ever look at partnerships? I mean, that's kind of going down that path. Like, did you look at partnerships?
I mean, I think influencers are great. So from a manufacturing point of view, we love that as new clients, right? So if you're an influencer that has a decent market size, and truly you're, Mr. Beast is interesting because it's like, oh, let me launch a candy bar. Well, and you can see with Prime Energy, some of these things, like they shoot up, but then they fade. I think even Mr. Beast, his burger chain idea. But when you have an influencer that really, really knows a kind of a niche market, that's a great opportunity for them to launch products and own, whether it's skincare because you're obviously in beauty as an influencer, but also tons of vertical, like, niche type things. I mean, there's guys out there there's a guy that does a channel about some sort of engineering, and he sold a screwdriver. I think he sold 50,000 of them, and it was like a $50 or $60 screwdriver. So, it's like very interesting things that are kind of niche. Not everybody might know about it, but huge opportunity to partner. Me personally, I would, as a brand, I would definitely do it. I think you just have to show traction. I mean, I'm early enough in a brand right now that we need to show sort of product market fit. And then you can kind of look at, I think, bigger partnerships. But of course, the creator side of it, I mean, as a consumable brand, sample, hand out, I mean, get as much product out into people's hands, particularly creators in today's world, because every creator is an influencer. They call them micro, nano, whatever you want to call them these days. It's so then you have to just choose, like, how big is the audience, right? Is it 100,000? Is it 1,000,000? Is it 10 million? And every time you jump up, you're just going to give up a lot more value, right? You're either paying them directly or you're giving equity in the company, which, that's, everybody thinks Logan Paul owns Prime Energy. He doesn't own, I mean, he might own a part of it, right? But he doesn't own the brand. So they had to give him a lot, though, to make him be the face of the brand, right? So yeah, it's that same question. I think you just have to decide as a brand, and is it the right fit? And can you afford to give up the equity, especially if you're going really big, like a big partner? So
Yeah. How is the Kiid Coffee brand? How's it rolling? Is it good?
So Kiid Coffee is just getting off the ground. So like I mentioned, sampling. We had some delays in manufacturing, so that took us, probably set us back 3.5 months, which honestly should have been expected. I have a background in manufacturing and supply chain, and still, delays. But it's not an uncommon occurrence. But I will say I'll take the blame on finding the right partners. A lot of it has to do with scale. I mean, you can find a great company, like great manufacturing partners, but the biggest ones don't necessarily want to work with the smallest, like, new startups, right? So you do have to find that kind of magic fit. But yeah, so just getting off the ground now. So we're getting really good feedback. Again, I look at it as product market fit from a product point of view. This is the world's first coffee brand for kids, if anybody's wondering. Yes, it's 99.9% caffeine free. So we'll knock that one out. But no, it's truly a brand addressing functional nutrition for kids, right? So the drink itself has prebiotic fiber, vitamins, minerals, and the important vitamins and minerals like calcium, magnesium, iron, that you won't find in multivitamins typically. And so yeah, the product market fit from the product point of view, do kids like it? Because if kids like it and they come back and drink it again and they ask their parents for it, then I see as a very viable, right? The lifetime value of the customer can be very high. But then the marketing, right? So that's an interesting angle, is that what we're doing is so different. Thick liquid death, and that idea of, if I say this, how many people like resonate with it, and will they tell someone else? That's a very important part of it. And that's what I mentioned. We talked about marketing earlier. It's that is the goal of the brand, is to create a channel, a marketing channel that's free. And there are books written on this. I think there's one, Contagious, by Jonah. Great book, very interesting. How do ideas spread, right? And how do you do that without spending, $30 to acquire a customer? Because every other e-com protein supplement brand out there is spending a fortune to acquire customers when the market is extremely competitive. And it's because, how many more protein brands can you talk about? How many would you share with a friend, or how many would you tell another parent about? So that's a question. And if it works, it could be very successful, but we're very early. So
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a lot of people like take a step back and be like, huh?
yeah,
Who give the kid coffee at the same time, like hand him a Mountain Dew? Don't drink coffee, right? Like, take this sugary carbonated beverage.
I've learned so much. I mean, that's an interesting part of overall. I mean, Aaron, talking to parents, finding out there's actually surveys on this. Kids drinking coffee is not the craziest thing, actually. It's a concept, though, that immediately gets a reaction, which, back to, from an influencer and social media and marketing point of view, a reaction is good. No reaction is bad. So if it gets a reaction, then it's just a question of whether that reaction results in a positive, like, experience, or if it results in a negative. I don't know, I'm going very probably deep there. But yeah, the idea, some parent, like, immediately people stop and they're like, wait, and that is the goal, right? That is one part of it. But then we still have to delight and surprise, right? Like, create something that's valuable and good. So yeah, it's gonna be gonna be a fun next few months, though.
Yeah, I'm pumped for it. I mean, we're a coffee family. Like, I've spent time roasting my own coffee. right? Like I'm pumped for it, right? It's going to be cool. It's going to be cool to watch. I've been picking your brain for a while. Like any questions you have for me?
No, I mean, the landscape, I come back to you, Aaron, obviously to see the corners that I'm not even looking around yet, right? From a brand point of view, it's it's interesting to network up and down the size, like especially the size, right? So $1 million brand versus a $10 million brand versus $100 million brand all have different challenges, of which some of them don't need to worry about. Like, as $1 million brand, you obviously don't need to worry about the same things that a $100 million brand do, but there are a lot of learnings in there, and there's a lot of similarities and issues that people are having. So, for me, I mean, marketing, I'm really not at the point to like ask you directly, like, what, because I don't have data of my own data, a lot of it at least yet, to kind of like really throw numbers at you. But I'll be coming soon with a long list.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think when you look at that scale of companies right now, I mean, profitability is just what everybody's looking at. That's just the reality. It doesn't matter yeah, how big you are. People are trying to solve for it because in the digital space, it's expensive to ship things, just period. Right. And if it's brick and mortar, people drive themselves to the store, they get it, they drive the product home, they don't like it, they drive it back to the store for you, right? If you're the retailer, and yeah, you give them the money back, but at least you didn't have the additional 2 times paying the shipping, a lot less damaged product, and so everybody's looking at profitability right now, and everybody is hoping that AI in some way, shape, or form is going to help solve that. And it hasn't quite yet. It has it a couple areas like procurement side of things. If you can have some AI, basically gamification of what's going on the procurement house, the procurement side of the house. But other than that, I mean, people are waiting for generative AI to really, really work well and not just show well. And so I think by that, I mean, the generative AI tools that a lot of people are evaluating right now. I was just talking with David Cost on a podcast couple before this that we recorded around like generative AI works really well when you see those instances. They've worked with that that brand that is trying to be their keynote, and they work with them around everything, the structure of the data that's being put in, the imagery, the brand guidelines is very, very high touch. And so in that case, what gets kicked out is something that's beautiful and works. But not every company's data is structured differently. And so if you plug in the data of a different structure and you don't have all of that extra time put into all the guidelines around what's acceptable, what's not, you just don't get that high quality back out. But that's yet. I mean, AI is changing fast, and it's going to start addressing some of the key things around marketing, around content generation. And it's going to be fun. We're right there where brands are starting to see it and evaluate it, not where we've got somebody that's just a rocket ship blowing it out of the water. So,
yeah, that's exciting. I mean, we've used quite a few tools. You mentioned content. Content is key. We just talked about creators and Mr. Beast and content. The really interesting thing is if you look at what I think gets eyeballs right now, particularly, I mean, Mr. Beast is putting millions into, I gave away a Lamborghini, right? Like not every brand can do that. So,
or he drops it from 100 feet in the air. You can either, it's
so he's got that angle. So, but if you go on YouTube, and I now follow and watch a lot of agencies that are talking about hooks and ad angles and things like that, because we're not immune to that. Yes, we want word of mouth. That's a big part of it. But I think the interesting content of these hooks that, pulling video, I'll have to admit, like my first kind of hire externally still, even with Kiid Coffee, is video production. And the second is video editing. And then the third is actually someone to help with all of the other logistical things going on with supply chain and everything else. So, or sorry, not just supply chain, but actually mostly creator sourcing management, right, of sampling. So the first three people of the whole entire brand are, I can figure out how to get the product made and do all that side of it, but it's truly what are we doing to get the product out there in front of people? And that's, the exact opposite of what I did in previous brands. So that's, if you think of like advice and challenges for me, that I see that as the biggest challenge for any brand now is like, how do you stand out? And AI, we've already done a few things where, like some fun ones, song generation, create a brand theme song. You could do it in 2 minutes. I can't even remember the name of the tool right now, but it's actually hilarious and it's pretty good. I got a package here, but we're doing a cartoon, so like animation, to turn this into a moving package. So I'm going to try this as a hook. We're going to try that as where you pick up the product in live, and then this is doing its own thing. So you overlaying it on there. I see that as a very interesting potential. A lot of brands have gotten away from characters, anamorphic characters, what that would be called. Anyway, so we'll see. But I'm excited because I've seen partial results, and I'm like, wow, this is a hook. You pick it up, you see it, and you're like, I got to stop and watch this for a second. So that's all we're going for.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, right? I haven't been this excited. It seems like there was a lull for a long time on high quality new tech and new partners coming out, right? Like, and we covered this, we've chatted about this, but I've covered on the podcast a ton of, right after COVID was hitting and all that money was pouring in, anybody could create a new tech company that was going to help you solve email issues or, rewrite content or whatever it was. Now we're at a point with that money drying up that we're getting, the cream is rising to the top, right? And the things that were never going to make it or weren't really working or were inevitable, weren't something that were going to stick around and save you money is, I guess, the right way to put it. Because if you add tech to the platform, it should either save you more money than you're paying for it, or drive more sales and profit than you're paying for it. And we're finally getting to that point right now. And I'm just seeing it really, really, really start to pick up. And that's where I totally geek out, right? I love people, and I love e-commerce. And when you get the really cool people doing the really cool things in e-commerce, it's so much fun. So much fun.
Yeah. I mean, Shop Talk was a good example of it seemed like I hadn't actually been before this past event. And I've heard it's a lot more SaaS companies now, right? Around ecom, right? So every major plugin for Shopify, right? Which I think our app stack is already 15 deep on our back end of Shopify. And I'm looking at these things and people say, oh yeah, it's only $400 a month. And I was like, I'm not going to say that we can't afford $400 a month, but you certainly can't prove to me it's worth $400 a month, considering it was $20 a month 4 years ago for like the same, package kind of thing. Right. And that's not, there's a lot of useful functionality you can get. But the reality is I think there's a consolidation coming in, like who's going to prove that they can create value, especially amongst the sort of SaaS, whether it's AI or it's plugins for Shopify, right? I mean, how many pop-up form plugins can there be, and how many post-purchase surveys, and truthfully, who's going to bring them all together? There are obviously some companies bringing most of the stuff together, but for a value, for me as a brand owner, proving out value is always important, right? Because no matter what, like you said, we're looking to go first order profitability, which is like kind of unheard of, right? But
yeah,
that's why we're pulling a lot of levers, right? Content creation costs money, right? But technically can drive a lot more sales at times than just paying for ads, right? So, yeah.
What are you most excited about over the next, I don't know, year and a half? Like, which gets you the most pumped up about everything?
Yeah, on which side? I mean, I'm a generally very happy person.
It could be GIZMO, it could be Kiid Coffee, it could be anything. It could be both.
Yeah. I think I'll be honest. There seems,
because you don't like to be bored, right? I mean, that's something that is inherently in every entrepreneur that I meet, is they cannot stand to be bored. And so, yeah.
This might sound a little crazy in a way, but I do feel like the last 8 to 10 years, because it's never been easier to start a business, right? That idea. But just because it's never been easier to start a business doesn't mean that there's been a lot of innovative businesses that have been created. I mean, yes, AI is interesting and there's a million ways to use it, right? And apps to do all these different things. But the businesses and the brands that come up that are actually being innovative and truly solving a problem, to me, that's what I get really excited about. So from the GIZMO side, we're working with a company that's doing a meditation device they've got patented technology. There's a lot of stuff going into it. It's not a massager or something that you might find on Amazon for $29.99. It's a high ticket item, but it's showing through, like, I don't want to say clinical trials, but in real trials, it's showing that it actually helps relieve stress for people. With Kiid Coffee and in the CPG space, everybody jumps on the newest, like, inflammation is the word today. So every product is now an inflammation product, or there's a lot of different things that happen, or everything's a high protein product. And for Kiid Coffee, what happened relatively recently, is my son has broken both of his legs, and we started digging into the research. No, well, first of all, I don't really believe a lot the doctors say, but when an orthopedist said finally, like, hey, you should really check into vitamin D because a lot of kids are vitamin D deficient now, we really started digging in, and this is not us, like, this is published research that deficiency is a term that would say, like, when you're below that level, you're probably going to have, like, negative health outcomes. That's my take on it. But the optimal level is pretty big range. And the problem is, at least in our country, a lot of kids are they might not be in the deficient. So they're not, your pediatrician might not say, hey, you really need to fix this. But they won't say anything then, in which case you have this question mark of, like, if a lot of kids barely have enough iron to be above the deficient level, and that affects your brain growth, that affects all kinds of things. Calcium is the other one. Like, you build most of your bone density when you're a kid. So if you don't build it up then, so if you stop drinking milk, you stop eating yogurt and cheese, which obviously is very common these days, and you think protein is the only thing your kids need, you actually might be doing a really big disservice to your kids. And so that one for me is like another, like, we're on a mission to actually solve a problem. Now, obviously we're doing it in a very different approach, but I do think there's opportunities in kids' nutrition and health, because not just us, right? What other people are stepping into doing is saying, wow, I didn't realize that most kids' multivitamins have no calcium and have no iron. So they basically are just giving you a big shot of vitamin C. Vitamin D is good. There's vitamin D in there. And you do need B and A and these different ones, but, like, they're not nearly as important as calcium, iron, fiber, right? So yeah, I mean, I obviously am very optimistic on a brand that I'm trying to build, because we're on a mission, right? We actually see a huge problem that we can solve, but there are plenty of other companies that are doing that in creative ways and really bringing innovation to the market. And it's not just, let me find the next version that I can list on Amazon, right, and build my $1 million company, because we all know that's going to be more challenging than ever. So
Yeah, no, and it's because, I mean, for you, even it's more than just doing that. Like, you can do it. You have done it. You built a brand. You sold it. Now you can do the same thing again, but it can be more the passion project, right? Like, actually doing something that's beneficial and meaningful for humanity as a whole. And so that's pump, man. Like, I'm totally rooting for you. You know that. And
thank you.
With that, I think we're going to wrap up this episode of the Digital Deep Dive. Everybody, David Sanborn, longtime friend, thanks so much for sharing your time today. Hope everybody has a fantastic day, and we're going to wrap up this episode of the Digital Deep Dive. Thanks, everybody, for listening in.